They didn't even look me in the eyes when they said it. "Ava, you're smart, go build your own fortune." My mom smiled like it was a compliment. My dad didn't even bother to explain. But when they handed my sister Lauren a check for $10 million, right there, in front of everyone, my heart didn't break. It turned to stone. Like plus subscribe if you've ever been underestimated, because this story will hit you hard. Drop a comment if you've ever been the underdog in your own family. I sat at the edge of that mahogany table, stunned. Lauren smirked like she'd won a game I didn't know we were playing. "Don't feel bad," she whispered. "You've always been more of a charity case anyway." My uncles chuckled. My cousins exchanged smug looks. No one said a word in my defense. Not even my parents. That day, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked out, quietly. But what they didn't know was, I wasn't empty-handed. While Lauren was flaunting that check on Instagram and booking a first-class trip to Paris, I was cashing in something far more valuable. They didn't know I'd spent the past 5 years working 2 jobs, living in a tiny studio apartment, and pouring every cent into a startup no one believed in. I never told them, because I knew how they operated. They only saw value in money they could control. And now? Now I had a silent partner, a signed deal, and a product launch scheduled for next month. Point one that would quietly shake the industry, but I wasn't going to tell them yet, not until Lauren came knocking, not until the family started begging, and they would, because I'd just been contacted by the very company Lauren invested half her inheritance in. They wanted me to acquire them. Lauren posted photos in front of private jets, Gucci bags in both hands, captioning them with things like, "Hard work pays off," face blowing a kiss, as if she'd ever worked a day in her life. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a tiny co-working space downtown, finalizing the acquisition deal that would flip everything upside down. The irony? The company she bragged about investing in, Nuvexa Tech, had been on the verge of bankruptcy. She didn't know that. No one in the family did. But I did. Because I built its competitor. From scratch. 3 years ago, I pitched my app, PulseStream, to Nuvexa's board. They laughed. Called it too ambitious for someone like you. So I walked out of that boardroom and swore I'd crush them in silence, and now, their CEO was practically begging me to acquire them. They couldn't afford another quarter in the red, their investors were pulling out, and their board? Full of panic. So I gave them a deal. I'd buy the company, with one condition: the public statement had to mention the name of the buyer, me, Ava Carson, front page. Full credit. Back at home, the mood shifted fast. It started with whispers from my cousins. Then came the texts from Mom: "Hey sweetie, can we talk? We're all so proud of you. Your dad wants to apologize." But I didn't reply. I was busy prepping for a tech summit where I'd be speaking as the keynote. The title of my speech, From Rejected to CEO, The Power of Being Underestimated. I wore a simple black blazer, no labels, no glam. But the moment I stepped onto that stage, I knew something had changed. I in the front row, my parents, and right next to them, Lauren, eyes wide, jaw clenched. They weren't invited, but they came, because now, I was the one being written about in Forbes. And Lauren? Her $10 million investment was now mine. What I said next on stage made my mother gasp, but not as much as what I had planned after the summit. After my keynote, the applause was thunderous, but I wasn't focused on the crowd. My eyes locked on Lauren's. Her face was pale, like she'd just realized she was sitting inside a storm she couldn't escape. As I walked off the stage, a journalist approached me for a quick interview. "Miss Carson, how does it feel to own the very company that once rejected your pitch?" I smiled. I guess sometimes being underestimated is the best disguise. I turned, and there they were, my parents and Lauren waiting like we were suddenly family again. Mom stepped forward. First, arms open. "Ava, we're so proud of you. You've really grown." I didn't hug her. I just said, "Now you see value in me?" Dad cleared his throat. "Listen, maybe we made a mistake." I cut him off. "No, you made a choice. You gave Lauren $10 million and told me to go earn my own. So I did. Just don't act surprised now that I earned more than all of you combined." Lauren snapped. "You stole that company. That was my investment." I tilted my head. "No, Lauren. You invested in a sinking ship. I just happened to buy it while it was drowning." She lunged forward, voice cracking. "You don't deserve any of this." And in that moment, the CEO of Nuvexa walked up beside me. "Ava, we've made the announcement live. Your name is trending on every platform. Congratulations, boss. Lauren looked like she'd been slapped out. I turned to her slowly and whispered, "You can keep the designer bags. I'll keep the power." Later that evening, at the exclusive after-party, an investor approached me. He was holding a glass of champagne and said, "I heard you once got nothing at your own family's will reading. Tell me, how does it feel now that you're worth $76 million?" I just smiled. It's not the money that feels good, it's the silence from everyone who once laughed. But the silence wouldn't last long, because I was about to make my next move, one that would put my family's entire legacy in my name. 3 weeks later, I made a quiet offer to purchase the Carson family estate, the very mansion I grew up in, the one my parents swore I'd never set foot in again after choosing struggle. It was listed in silence. After Lauren's failed investment tanked her portfolio, and Dad's real estate ventures collapsed under debt, they were forced to put it on the market. They didn't know the anonymous buyer offering above market price was me. The day the papers were signed, I walked through the front door. Lauren was there, suitcase in hand. "What are you doing here?" she barked. "I could ask you the same," I replied, holding up the deed. "Actually, never mind. I own the place now." She blinked like she didn't believe it. "You're lying." I handed her the document with my signature stamped at the bottom. Her hands shook. "You bought the house?" "No, Lauren. I bought our childhood. And now, I decide who stays and who goes." She exploded. "You're doing this just to humiliate us." "No," I said calmly. "I'm doing this because this house taught me everything, about pain, about being second. Now it's time it teaches you about consequences." Later that night, Mom and Dad showed up, shocked to see me at the door instead of a realtor. "You're the buyer?" Dad stammered. I nodded. "You once told me to go make my own." "Well, I did. And I just bought the roof over your heads." There was a long, painful silence. Then Mom said quietly, "What do you want from us?" I looked them both in the eye. "I want nothing, except for you to feel what I felt the day you gave away my place in this family." The next morning, movers arrived. Lauren and my parents were escorted out. No yelling. No drama. Just reality. And me? I stood on the balcony of the mansion, the wind hitting my face, watching them walk away, homeless, speechless, broken. But I wasn't done yet, because one final piece was still left. The family trust fund, and I had a plan to take control of that too. By exposing something none of them saw coming, they thought the humiliation was over. They thought being kicked out of the house was the final blow, but I wasn't done, because the Carson Family Trust Fund, worth over $40 million, was still under Dad's control. Or so they believed. See, years ago, when I was quietly building Pullstream, I discovered something in one of my late grandfather's legal files. A loophole. Point 1 that stated, if the current trustee ever misused trust funds for personal gain, control would automatically transfer to the next most qualified beneficiary, based on financial success. I kept that information buried, until now, because after Lauren's investment failure, Dad secretly pulled over $2 million from the trust to cover her losses, without notifying the board, and thanks to my legal team, I had the proof. I filed a motion through the family court. Quietly. By the time they found out, it was already too late. A letter arrived in their temporary apartment. It had just 2 lines, effective immediately. Ava Carson is the legal controller of the Carson Family Trust. Lauren came banging on my office door the next morning. "You're stealing everything." This was supposed to be my legacy. I didn't even flinch. "No, Lauren. It was grandfather's legacy. And he made sure it would go to the one who actually earned it." Mom called me 20 times that week. Left voicemails that swung between guilt trips and desperate apologies. Dad even showed up in person one day, standing in the lobby of my headquarters. "Like a stranger, Ava," he said, "this isn't what your grandfather would have wanted." I stared at him. "Actually, it's exactly what he wanted. You just never thought I'd be the one strong enough to make it happen." He stood in silence. "I built everything with zero help," I continued. "No inheritance. No encouragement. Just pain. And now I'm using that pain as power. You called me the weakest link. Now I'm the chain that holds this entire family's future." A month later, I made a public announcement. The trust would be restructured, funds would be redirected to charity programs, young female entrepreneurs, and orphan scholarships, not to lazy, entitled heirs. Lauren tried to sue, she lost. Dad tried to get media sympathy, but no one cared, because by now, the world had already labeled me as the queen of the silent comeback. For the first time, people saw the truth, that the girl who once sat silently at the edge of the reading table had turned the entire table around, and me, I didn't need revenge anymore, because I had something much better: freedom, power. And finally, peace.so. When people ask me, do you ever regret what happened that day? I smile, no. That day they gave my sister $10 million and told me to go build my own life, was the best day of my life.